So we should also talk a little bit about the work of Pierre Bourdieu. Now, Bourdieu was a French sociologist, and in France, everybody knew who he was. I doubt that anybody could realistically list any contemporary sociological theorists off the top of their head. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Pierre Bourdieu was very, very critical of the status quo. His work had a lot of very close ties to the work of Karl Marx, and he saw what he called the neoliberal scourge as really afflicting our contemporary society. Now, what does that mean? Well, Bourdieu was able to list some of the characteristics of the scourge. He said that this is a neoliberal idea which embraces a market solution to all of society's ills. All right, now, what exactly does that mean, a market solution? Well, in contemporary America, the market is seen as determining the economy. And so there is a sort of hands-off approach to how the market functions. And we are convinced in America, or at least some numbers of our politicians are convinced, that the market will take care of everything and that the government doesn't need to intervene. And so we see increasing numbers of social services that used to be under the auspices of the government now being turned over to privatization. And so they become money-making endeavors for people. Some people at the top are making a lot of money off of these private agencies that the government used to run and control. Bourdieu also would have been against globalization because he would have seen globalization as marginalizing people whose countries are impacted by very, very powerful multinational corporations. He felt that markets and globalization protected the interests of the powerful. In Mills' words, this would have been the power elite, those people who owned corporations that were able to extend the boundaries of wealthy nations and infiltrate into the boundaries of less wealthy nations. Pierre Bourdieu also saw cultural capital as a characteristic which helped to solidify social status. Now, this not only worked for the wealthy, but cultural capital also worked for those who were less fortunate. So let's take a look at this idea of cultural capital. This is a very, very powerful theory from Pierre Bourdieu. All right, so Bourdieu asserted that cultural capital helped to reproduce the class structure in society, and when it helped to reproduce the class structure of society, it also helped to legitimize that class structure. This reproduction oftentimes allows us to view the class structure as it is what it is. There's no point in changing it. It's always been that way. We're just going to have to deal with it. So we can look at the theory of cultural capital as a sort of ideal. The more cultural capital a person has in a society, the more distance they're going to try and create between themselves and everyone else. Popular culture is a very important force in American society today, and the more cultural capital a person has, the more distance they are going to seek between themselves and popular culture. They don't need popular culture. They don't even need to be popular. They have enough cultural capital, enough resources at their disposal that they don't have to worry about trying to fit in or be popular or be a part of the popular culture. And so they tend to distance themselves from all that the rest of us, quote unquote, normal middle-class Americans see as important or essential aspects of society. The privileged children of the elite have insider information, which makes the educational system much easier to navigate for them. They likely have parents who were college graduates who have advanced degrees. They likely have parents who may know people who can influence the school. And since those parents are also highly educated, the parents will replicate in those children how to behave, what the expectations are, and they will be able to push the child, help the child, seek appropriate help for the child, and they have the resources at their disposal to do so. On the other side of that equation would be the less privileged child. Oftentimes they don't bring the same set of skills, the same cultural capital to the system of education. They don't have that same insider information that elite privileged children seem to just take for granted. And so less privileged children oftentimes end up in school environments where maybe the teachers aren't of the highest caliber. Maybe perhaps they have parents who are not educated to a higher level, and therefore the parents struggle to understand the system as well. And this creates friction and conflict for the child. And so the child can't navigate that system as easily if they have less cultural capital as can a child who has more cultural capital. Non-elites also don't have control over their economic resources. What does that mean? Well, oftentimes you have a job, but that job depends on your ability to perform a task for someone else, where elites have oftentimes complete and total control over their economic resources. They are the business owners, they are the captains of industry, these are the people who employ you if you have less cultural capital. And therefore you're always somewhat beholden to those elites to maintain even just that middle class standing in your life. So while Bourdieu goes on even farther and breaks down the notion of capital into three different types, economic, social, and cultural, I think he probably did most of his work in the realm of cultural capital and how the differences between different classes gets replicated in society, and therefore with that replication makes itself legitimate. All right? I hope this helps you to understand Pierre Bourdieu's main contributions to sociology. We'll talk again soon. Take care.